As she is working, you will notice a lot of trips back and forth between the workbench and that reheating furnace. And that is just to maintain the temperature of the glass. Because as we're working and as we're out of the heat source, that glass is always cooling down. And you'll notice that as she spends more time out of the heat source and as that glass gets inflated and gets thinner, it's going to be cooling even faster. Because at this point, the glass is still fairly condensed, so it has a lot of thermal mass. But then when it's blown up and thin, it has less thermal mass. So I like to compare it to soup. We have a bowl of soup. If you have a bowl of soup, the soup stays hot for a long time, but a little bit of soup on a spoon cools off much faster. It's because of the thermal mass. So we're thinking about the same thing with our glass here. Now, Kim was finishing that twist a little bit. She was using some shears to pull and twist that glass a little bit further. That bit that she cut off, we'll recycle that. We can put that back into the furnace, remelt it, and we do this with clean, clear glass a lot. Any glass that we sweep up off the floor, though, or if we've added color, or if it's contaminated in any way, it would change our clear glass in the furnace. So instead, we work with a local construction company. They take all of our glass scraps and they grind those up and mix them into concrete. So the little sparkles that you sometimes see in the road, those would be glass makers' mistakes. Or they also will grind it up, they mix it into the paint that they use to paint the road, to make the road lines look shiny and reflective. So we just send it off. We have a specific bin for all of our scrap glass. So twisting, stretching, inflating, a lot of this happens back and forth. This doesn't all happen at one time. If Kim wanted, she could use her big, strong glass blower lungs. She could blow really hard and make this amount of glass easily bigger than a beach ball and thinner than cellophane. In fact, we can blow it up and pop it, but then if the show's over, it's a really short demonstration. So we don't want to do that, but it's possible to blow that glass up and pop it. So we'll often say that it only takes about as much pressure as you might use to blow out a birthday candle. You can blow out a candle, you can blow out glass. As long as it's hot, it does inflate easily. Now, when we work in this process, this handmade process, we work on the bottoms of pieces first, and then we'll work on the tops of the pieces second. So the part that's closest to all of us is going to become the bottom. So right next to the pipe, she's been squeezing in this constriction with these steel tools that we call jacks. So that line that we make in the glass with the jacks, we call, this is another clever name, we call it the jack line. But that is a place where we can break the glass from the pipe. So it's an intentional weak point. So it's a little bit like the crease in a chocolate bar. The crease in chocolate tells chocolate where to crack and break. The crease in our glass tells the glass where to crack and break as well. Now, one of the things that I think is interesting about these jacks is that these are a handmade tool. You may imagine very niche market for handmade glass-blown tools. There are more, but there are probably 4 or 5 that are really well-known tool makers. We have tools from all of them. These ones that I'm holding, these are from Murano, Italy. We have some from Japan. We have some from here in the United States. But every glass maker has a preference for which tools they prefer. Now these tools also vary dramatically in price. There's one tool maker who's no longer living. His jacks, you can find them on the internet for thousands of dollars to buy these. I have some that I bought in college for a couple $100. They work fine. Sure. Now this reheating furnace, we do have additional doors that we can open. So as the pieces get larger, we can fit back into that reheating furnace. We actually have 3 sets of doors, so we can open that furnace really big. You will notice though, on the left side, we have an even bigger reheating furnace. It's a jumbo furnace. It very rarely gets turned on. Because we would have to make something really big to need that furnace on. That furnace takes about 2 hours to warm up if we want to use it. This other furnace that we're using, it only takes about an hour, hour and a half to warm up in the morning. And this glass studio is all fueled by natural gas. So it's natural gas and forced air. It's just piped right into the building. If you go upstairs to our innovation shop, though, we have another glass studio. It's a smaller demonstration space. They do shows like this. That equipment is all electric, so it's pretty interesting. We worked with an equipment builder out of Seattle, Washington, to develop the all-electric glass studio. And we actually put those glass studios on cruise ships. And for about 10 years, the Recording Museum of Glass put glass blowers on cruise ships to travel all around the world and do demonstrations for entertainment on a cruise ship. And that was something I was lucky enough to do. And it was really fun, and it was especially fun. We got to leave Corning, New York in the winter and go to the Caribbean or go to Australia. It's pretty great. But we're pretty much done working on the bottom of this piece, so now we will start working on the top. So I just made a punty, and this punty is a temporary handle. This is a small amount of glass that sticks right in the center of her piece. And then we'll break this off of the blowpipe that she has onto the punty that I have. Then we'll have access to the top and the opening. So we'll use that constriction, that jack line, to break the glass free. We'll break it by cooling the glass really quickly. We can add a couple drops of water. The water creates all these fractures, and then a light tap, that's all it takes to set the piece free. And I say we give him a big round of applause. That was a textbook glass breaking. If you've ever broken glass before, you know that glass tends to break in all these big, sharp, jagged, irregular pieces. So for us, it's successful when it breaks only when and where we tell it to break. But that's a moment where a lot of things can go wrong. That move is very temperature dependent. We're not using thermometers, we're just guessing. So that guessing, that understanding of timing, comes from having made, mostly having broken a lot of things before. But we'll take some time to reheat and resoften this glass, which is a good time for questions. Any questions? Yeah. Yeah, schooling is a kind of program, is it a trade school? A lot of us that work here learned in college or university. I actually got started, I'm from Nebraska. There was a college in my hometown, and they had a glass blowing program, and I took a public class when I was in high school. So I was a teenage boy, pyromaniac, and I took this glass blowing class and fell in love with glass making, and then I went to that school and learned there. Very few people go to art school with the intention of being a glass blower. It's more like they go for maybe photography or graphic design or something, ceramics, and then they take glass blowing and decide that it's really fun to play with fire, and then they become a glass maker. So there are a couple different ways to learn. You don't have to go to school though. You might go to school for something else and then take public classes. That's what Kim did. You went to school, remind me, you have a master's degree in education, is that right? Yeah. And now you're a glass blower. And I think this is only the first or second day Kim and I have actually blown glass together. She's been here all summer, but the schedule has just not worked out that well. So I actually don't know your origin story that well. We'll go over it later. All right. Yeah. So, yeah, not everyone goes to school to learn, but honestly, she was learning, or she was working, we were talking about this a little bit earlier, she worked in a studio in Murano, in Italy, very famous glass making tradition there. That's where we get most of our techniques. So you can just get jobs in glass blowing studios if you're willing to work. You start at the bottom and you work your way up, but that's probably a faster way to learn than going to art school. Because in art school, you have a lot of other classes that you have to take, and it's college, so you have a social life, and you're not just blowing glass all the time. And glass making is really like anything, the more you practice, the more you're doing it, the better you're gonna be at it. So if you practice the piano a couple hours a week, you're not gonna be as good as somebody who practices the piano 8 hours a day. In glass making, it's the same thing. It's all about the time doing it. So she just cut this at an angle. By cutting it at an angle, she created a pour spout. So this is gonna be a pitcher. So she made a high side and a low side. It's pretty surprising to people that we can cut through glass, but we can cut through glass quite easily as long as it's hot. Sure, would you like that in a color? So this is the glass that she just cut off. It's completely rigid. So that's how fast it's cooling up. But she's asked me for a lip wrap, so there's a little bit of decoration that's gonna go along this top edge. Do you want any color on that? Or just clear? Just clear, all right. So the lip wrap, some glass will wind around the top edge. I was asking if she wanted some color. She said, we'll just do clear. If we were going to add color, I would do that right now. Fresh out of the furnace, I could roll through these little shards, these chips of crushed glass color. This is called frit. And those little pieces would stick like sprinkles on ice cream. You could melt those in smooth. Most of my analogies are food-based. Soup, chocolate bar, ice cream, it's all food. But it's a quick and easy way to apply color. Now, we've got some red, white, and blue out today. I think that's for, was that Paraguay? The Paraguay flag? Yeah. France, yeah. The Netherlands, Samoa. They've got a red, white, and blue flag. I have to look up some other flags. But this glass and this wrap is a great way to show you how we can add glass in a way that machines can't. So you just wrap this glass around the very edge. The machines don't do this. So if you come across a piece of glass that has a wrap like this, that is a good way to see that it was handmade. So we have a lot of different pieces along the front of our stage that have these additional wraps added to them.